So I blew through, not too bad. Yes.
I have a young client. She's young. She's just starting. And she got herself into a little trouble because of a living with situation where both were on the lease, but he was paying the rent. She was paying him, only he really wasn't paying.
Right.
And there was a judgment that was filed, and she has a judgment. That is a civil judgment, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Has there been success with that kind of a judgment coming off?
Yeah, the parameters around how it happened make no difference at all. It's all they're looking at.
The judge didn't think it made any difference. She has a judgment.
Yeah, exactly. So, from a standpoint of the dispute process, it's cut and dry for everything across the board. For the bankruptcy, you dispute it the same way. For civil judgment, same way. There's nothing that changes within the structure of the letter. It's just, it's not mine, prove that it is, basically is how it works.
And has there been instances in your experience where, in that case, the management company or whatever comes back and proves that it's theirs?
No.
No.
No. Because the management company's not contacted.
Who's contacted then?
The court.
Court?
Yeah, whoever put the public record on.
Oh.
So in another area too, which you brought up a good point, in divorces, I spent a couple of years working with a lady had a company called Brilliant Exits, and I spent a lot of time talking to women and men who were in the situation of getting a divorce. And there are a lot of things people can do to protect them credit-wise going into a divorce situation where you think the spouse is going to be mean and brutal. So if you run across somebody like that too, just give me a holler and I'll give you some insight into that, because there are protections that you can establish with your credit card companies and with the lending institutions to protect yourself in case that does go south and he does run up the credit card bills and you're an authorized user or it's your card he steals. I mean, there's ways to protect yourself to do that too.
Apparently this situation also was that he was using social that really he purchased. So the whole
Nice
debt
guy.
apparently is on her.
Give me a copy of the report. I'll look at it. Let's see what we can do. Is there anything I touched on or didn't touch on, or does anybody have any questions? I thought I hit just about everything.
Two things.
Yes, sir.
On a dispute, does that lower your credit score when you
No.
dispute stuff?
No. The only thing that you'll ever run into, and from a dispute standpoint, and his question was, will the dispute process lower the score? No, it does not. What you could get into a situation with a lender is that if you have sometimes underwriting will not finalize a loan if there are items on the credit report that say that they're in dispute. Because typically what happens is, by law, here's how the process works. When you send the dispute letters in, the way the law is written, the credit bureaus are supposed to take everything being disputed out of the scoring algorithm. And that causes your score to go down during the dispute process. That's why in my instruction email I send to my clients, don't apply for credit, don't pull credit, don't do anything without calling me first if you need to. Because typically, if you've got a 650 credit score, you try to get to 700, and you go through a dispute for 4 or 5 items, if they remove those items, even though they're negative, they score. So your score could go down to a 610 or a 620 during that cycle of dispute and that investigation. So once the investigation is done, everything's put back in, your score will go back up. Some lenders feel that because those items are in dispute, that they're not scoring the way it should, and they won't take the risk. They want those disputed lines removed, and that's just a way of calling the credit bureau, getting somebody on the phone, sending a letter, faxing them something that says, "Hey, this is no longer in dispute. I've worked this out. Please remove it." And usually within 7 to 10 days, they'll take it off. They've done it faster, but that's really the only thing that you can run into. And that I've never, 2,000 plus clients, I've never seen a single dispute process that's been affected by the dispute process itself. Yes,
Earlier, you touched upon the fact about the difference between utilizing your services versus an attorney.
The difference is that the attorney cannot do anything other that anybody can do if he's going to dispute items through the mail than sending the letter the same way I send them. My letters were written by a credit attorney. So the only difference between what I do, what you could do, what you could do, what you could do on your own is that dispute, if he goes through the mail, which is the best way to get the dispute done, is going to be on legal letterhead. So it may have a bigger impact. I don't think it does, but it may. And the other side of the coin would be if you're going to be utilizing a credit attorney, Is that credit attorney gonna be willing to put together letters for you for items that you're aware that were yours? I guess it comes to an ethical standpoint. I mean, that's the other side of the coin that I deal with in this business is that, I have had 2 clients in the last 6 years that have said, I can't send these letters, these are my accounts, and I don't feel comfortable doing it. I can't help you. That's the only way to get it done. The credit bureaus wrote the law that way because that's the only way to get it done. You can only get anything investigated if you say it's not mine, even if you know it's yours. So, there's an ethical issue in there involved. And the other side of the coin is too, I'll be very honest with you, is that, I'm helping people get their credit scores up. But that doesn't take away from the fact that they're terrible with their credit. So, you got a lender who says, hey, get this credit score up. My client wants to get this loan. I get the credit score up and get the loan. Well, what does that do down the road if this client decides not to pay the bills again? So, for me, it's a vicious, believe me, it's a vicious cycle for me as well. Because you've got good people that get in trouble and you've got people who just, I got a credit report, no lie, I got a credit report yesterday, 60 pages, 60-page credit report. And there were 59 items on that credit report. And 35 or 40 of them were just judgments and collections.
What was the score?
392.
And you can help that person?
Minus 2.
Well.
There's only one way to go on that person.
I took, the problem is, and the problem is in that situation, and I told her, when I talked to her, I said, you have 2 positive trade lines. You've got a secured credit card, and you've got a car. Somebody gave her a car. And I said, what are you paying interest? She says, I don't know, I think it's in the 40 range. Or just some ridiculous amount. So I said, you've got to because I can remove everything. I can get everything wiped out on the credit report, but if there's no positive trade lines driving the score, it's not going to do anything. You have to have positive credit. So when I look at a credit report, if there's 15 negative items, but there's 7 good positive trade lines, I know if I get some of these off, that score is going up for sure. But if you've got 2 positive trade lines and you're dealing with 10 or 15 items, even if you remove the items, if you don't get any more positive credit, it's not going to work. And that's one of the things that I do that's built into what I do is I'll show that person how to go get on as an authorized user, how to establish new lines of credit during the process. So you're doing both ends. You're helping them build the positive credit and you're helping them remove the negative credit. Now this kind of person, 6 months minimum. 6 months minimum to get anything done. A year's even better. But there is that client I can help who needs to close a loan in 45 or 60 days and has 1 or 2 items. You send out 1 letter, it gets removed, it gets updated, and they can close that loan. But I'll know from looking at the credit report where it stands. Yes, sir.
So from a timing perspective, let's say I run somebody's credit and they've got a 30-day late on a car note installment loan that just happened, let's say, 60 days ago. Is it more advantageous to wait a little longer because it's been just reported? Does that make a difference? If we say, okay, all of a sudden now we want to go back right away and try and dispute this, does the timing make a difference? Should you wait a month or 2?
Yeah.
Or if you see it, just go ahead and try and...
Well, it's a great question, and I'll tell you that if that client had a 30-day late on the car payment because he had an error that is not normally his error ways, and the rest of his credit is good, and that's the one specific item, the first thing I would do with that client is I would tell him to call that car finance company and say, hey, look, I've been with you for this number of years. Here's the situation. And just give me a one-time courtesy, and that's the verbiage. Just give me a one-time courtesy here on this. You look at my credit report. I've never been late, and sometimes they'll do that. Capital One's been pretty good about doing that recently. But as far as to answer that question, it doesn't matter the time frame on it. You can dispute it. I've had clients that we've disputed bankruptcy a week out of discharge.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we disputed it. I didn't say it got removed, but we disputed it. And same thing with foreclosures and short sales. You can dispute. It doesn't once the loan is done, you can dispute anything. And closed accounts are easier than open accounts. If you've got an account that's closed, a lot of times they won't ever come back and verify it. So, yeah, but anybody that's like that, anybody's got a good credit card, history, especially if they've been with that company a long time. You can call and just say, and move it up the ladder to the top and just say, look, you got to just give me a break here. It's killing me. Drop my credit score 60 points. And sometimes they will. And if not, call me and we'll run through the dispute process. Yes, ma'am.
So student loans, that whole world. So student loans don't ever really go.
Oh, they do.
away?
They can, and
Like,
they can get
how is
updated.
that- If any, is that process different? I mean.
It's
you
not.
go into dispute it, I mean, obviously they're your loans, like, it's your name, you know, that.
No, you gotta understand too that the Department of Education's database is so massive.
Yeah,
And you can get a student loan that then gets deferred and they split it up into 6 other loans to make the payment smaller, and now the data is completely messed up. So a lot of times those can be updated and verified. I mean, those can be updated to pays as agreed or be deleted because they can't accurately give the information because their database is so bad. The reason I was pointing out that a bankruptcy is easier than a student loan is because student loans really can be taken care of if you put forth the effort to do it. So I did a class for a bunch of hospital interns not too long ago that were just coming out and getting there, and I told them straight up, I said, you gotta pay your student loans no matter what you do, beg, borrow, steal. Have everything else go to crap, but you can pay your student loans, you got to, because the government will never give up. But they don't, their databases aren't that accurate. And I just had a client recently that had 3 student loans and he split them up into smaller payments and he ended up having like 14. And they're all under the same number, but it's 14 hits.
yeah.
So if anything, we clean them up. I mean, the less negative you have, the better your score is going to be. And a lot of times their database is so bad, they'll double post everything. So you'll see these things, and that's by looking at the report. We can figure that out.
So with a student loan, does it hurt you? Because, so my daughter has 2 different student loans. And so one of them I pay, and the other one she's responsible for paying. But she keeps calling them and saying, well, I'm going to get my master's, so I gotta pay for my GRE test. And they say, okay, we'll give you another 6 months. Does that
The deferment? Does that hurt? No. No.
So she can just keep deferring?
She can keep,
whatever
as
they-
long as she keeps, the whole thing's communication. It's just communication. There's some people, credit card companies and people like that will be, bad about it. But the Department of Education, as long as you stick to your guns and give them a good reason, and that's why I say it, just communicate and just,
I'm like, well,
there you
do
go.
something with the one I'm paying every month then.
2 questions for you. One, how does a person pay a debt? Collection guy calls them up, says, pay it, and I'll take care of it. What do they need to do to protect themselves to make sure that they can get it off the credit report? And 2, what does a perfect credit report look like?
Question 2 is a tough one. Question 1's easy. I'll tell you the outline for how a good credit report looks. As far as a collection company calling you, I've got a restricted, there's a document, it's called a restricted debt settlement letter. It's drawn up by an attorney, my attorney buddy. And it's a letter that you could use to your advantage if you have a collection company that you're trying to pay a collection of, or a client has a collection they're trying to pay off. You have the right to say, and right now the national collection average across the board is 2.7 cents per dollar that collection companies are taking to pay off debt, because everybody's scrambling to get extra money in the door. So if you had a $1,000 debt, chances are they'll take $270 for that $1,000 debt. But you have to say to them, hey, I want this removed from my credit. Oh, we're gonna take care of it. We're gonna update everything. No, I want it deleted from my credit report. Oh, we can't delete it. Well, then I'm not paying it. And I'm telling you, hang up. They'll call back. 2 days later, you call back. Say, hey, look, I'm interested in paying this debt. You guys gave me an offer $270, but I want it deleted. Sometimes they'll take it right there. Other times they'll say no. And if they come back and say yes, there's a restricted debt settlement letter, and it outlines the conversation. Anybody wants it, just email me and I'll send you the template. It's real simple, self-explanatory. It outlines the conversation, the amount of money you're going to pay, the amount of money that they're getting to call this debt even and paid in full, and they'll delete it from the credit report within 15 days. Fax that letter to them as soon as they sign it, fax it back to you, send them the money. Don't send them a penny unless they put something in writing. And you have to use the term delete, because they'll go, we're going to update everything, yeah, it'll be fine. No, if they update it to paid, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for it to get deleted. And they'll do it. They'll tell you, oh, it's against the law, it's against our merchant agreement, we can't do it, it's all BS. They can do it. In fact, I had a client, it was really funny. I don't know if you all remember the show Columbo. And one of the greatest sales closes in the world is old Columbo close. So he gets American funding on the phone. It was American funding. And he's going round and round and round. He kept hanging up on him. And they would call back. Finally he answered and he said, look, we can't do that, sir, but now we're going to offer you this amount of money. He said, fine, I'll take that. And he said, I'll send you something running. So he faxes the restricted debt settlement letter, all filled out. Somebody on the other end took it off the fax machine, signed it, sent it back to him. So he sent in the money, nothing happened. We sent that letter along with a dispute letter to the credit bureau. They took the item right off the credit report immediately because they had the signed document. So he just sent it there anyway and said, well, I'm just gonna send it anyway. Sure enough, somebody thought it was a legit document, signed it, and sent it back. So, that restricted debt settlement letter works. If you want it, I'll send it over to you. As far as a perfect credit score goes, the perfect credit score is gonna be someone over the age of 50, someone who has 3 revolving credit accounts and at least 1 or 2 installment accounts, and has a mix of their credit cards between a bank card, 1 or 2 bank cards, and a revolving store card. Has been in the same job for at least 12 or more years, and has good credit from the day they started. I'm a perfect example of someone who I cannot get to an 800 credit score. My house is paid for. My vehicle is paid for, so I don't have a mortgage payment. I don't have an installment payment. I have 7 revolving credit cards, and I live off. That's my thing. I've tried everything, and I teach this. And without an installment line of credit, I'm at 796, but I cannot break that 800 barrier. And the reason is because I don't have an installment line of credit. If I had an installment line, I would have the mix, and that would put me into.
You probably get your mortgage here.
Yeah, no, I don't want a mortgage.
So actually, that's my sister. Her credit score was 801 or something like that when she went to purchase a car, they wanted to give her a 4 point something, and she told them she was insulted, because that's what people with bad credit.
Right.
So she ended up getting like 1.49 or something.
Great.
But, so she just came into some money, so she paid off everything. So now she has
No debt.
no debt at all. Is that gonna bring her credit score down?
Uh-huh.
So she should at least continue to use her credit cards or something.
Yeah, and when I said rotate them, that's exactly what I mean. Take one credit card and use it. Don't use it extensively. Literally today, buy a tank of gas, it's $80.
But she takes pride in her.
And then she has to pay at least 2 months. You got to make 2 months of payments, and I'll pay more than the amount, and then pay it off, and then use the next card, and then do that. That's going to maximize the score. Again, if she's somebody who's, you got an 801 credit score, unless you're buying something, you don't need your credit score to be any higher,
But she takes pride in that, so
Yeah.
I'm saying I think it's gonna come down now, because you paid everything.
It should, because they're not active anymore. So unfortunately, it's a raw deal.
Any other questions?
Did I miss anything? Did you learn anything?
I learned a lot, but I wish you would have had some type of marketing materials for me to take home.
You got a business card.
Like this PowerPoint presentation?
I got a business card.
Email me and I'll send you the PowerPoint presentation.
There you go.
I'll put in a PDF and send it to you. But you gotta promise me you can't go out and start teaching credit seminar.